Okay, let's dive right into this explainer, because today we are unraveling one of the absolute most fascinating cause and effect chains you'll find anywhere in historical records. We aren't just plotting dates on a timeline here, we're tracking a literal ripple effect. We're going to see how one deeply personal, totally uncompromising choice made by a single family in ancient times created these massive waves that are quite literally still washing ashore today, nearly 2,000 years later.
I mean, just look at the sheer scale of the historical mystery we're looking at today. You've got the Roman Empire in the 2nd century on one hand and modern-day India on the other. They seem completely disconnected, right? Separated by oceans, separated by millennia. But as you'll see, the thread connecting them is incredibly strong. And it's all woven through the lives of identical twin brothers and the ultimate sacrifice made by their parents.
So here is our roadmap. We're going to trace this timeline chronologically, starting with the ultimate parental sacrifice, then looking at giving it all away, moving into the twins' own martyrdom, uncovering relics, miracles, and witnesses, and finally ending up at a global twin pilgrimage. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. The ultimate parental sacrifice. Because really, you cannot understand these twins without first understanding the parents who raised them. Take a look at this. That's Saint Vitalis, the father of our identical twins, Gervasis and Prothasis. Now, Vitalis wasn't just some guy. He was a man of consular dignity in Milan. He had status, he had wealth, he had serious power. But he was also secretly a devout Christian. And when another Christian, a man named Astasius, was facing execution, Vitalis actually stepped out of the shadows. He openly encouraged Astasius to stay strong in his faith, and after the execution, Vitalis made sure the man was given an honorable burial. But in doing so, Vitalis completely exposed himself.
So a Roman official named Paulinus discovers his faith, and the punishment is swift and visceral. Look at these steps. It wasn't just a simple execution. Vitalis was racked, then thrown into a deep pit, and literally buried alive under stones and earth. It was this terrifying, calculated display of Roman authority meant to just crush any defiance.
And if you're thinking, well, surely that broke the family, you'd be wrong. Actually, it did the exact opposite. The twins' mother, Valeria, met a very similar brutal fate in Milan. She was caught burying Christian martyrs, literally continuing the exact same compassionate, defiant work as her husband. When they ordered her to sacrifice to the Roman gods to save her own life, she flat out refused. She was executed, and her remains were gathered by fellow believers and placed in the catacombs of St. Sebastian. So now, Gervasis and Prothasis are orphans. But instead of being intimidated, they are completely spiritually galvanized.
Which brings us to Section 2, giving it all away. The blood of their parents basically drew a line in the sand for these brothers.
Witnessing that ultimate sacrifice was the direct catalyst for what they did next. They didn't run, they didn't hide, they didn't use their dad's massive wealth to bribe officials or flee the empire. Nope. Instead, they took their entire inheritance, all the wealth and belongings of a Roman consular official, and they distributed every single piece of it to the poor. They completely, totally detached themselves from the material world that had just murdered their family. And look at this number, 10. That represents the astonishing 10 straight years these formerly wealthy brothers spent living in a tiny, impoverished hut. A full decade dedicated entirely to prayer and meditation. They were preparing themselves, honoring their parents' legacy by living a life of absolute spiritual devotion. But, as you can probably guess, in the Roman Empire, even quiet defiance was a threat. Moving on to Section 3, the twins' own martyrdom. Because this decade of quiet devotion is about to collide head-on with the paranoid power of Rome. The state was definitely not done with this family. The narrative takes a really dark turn here. A Roman general named Astasius receives a chilling warning from the local pagan priests. They are claiming that the Roman gods are angry, and worse, they will remain totally silent until these specific twin brothers are forced to sacrifice to them. Just like that, the twins are violently dragged out of their 10 years of peace and shoved into the exact same life-or-death ultimatum their mother Valeria had faced.
And as you can see here, the executions were distinct and horrific. Neither brother yielded to Astasius' demands. They wouldn't apostatize. They held the line exactly like Vitalis and Valeria. Because of that, Gervasis was brutally scourged to death with lead-weighted whips. His twin, Prothasis, was beaten with a stick and then beheaded. They came into the world together, and they left it together, completely united in their unbreakable conviction.
You can see right here in this 14th century manuscript how later generations immortalized that sacrifice. The artists are really trying to capture the sheer brutality of it all, and the steadfastness of the twins. Now, for a long time, the physical location of their bodies was entirely lost to history. They became legends, but remains were hidden. Until, that is, a really incredible event centuries later.
All right, Part 4.
relics, miracles, and witnesses. Let's dig into how a 300-year-old historical cold case was suddenly solved. Fast forward to 386 AD. Saint Ambrose, the very famous Bishop of Milan, has just built this magnificent new basilica. The locals want him to consecrate it with immense solemnity, and to do that, he needs holy relics. Well, Ambrose literally has a prophetic premonition, a dream, showing him exactly where to dig. He orders his team to excavate in outside the city, right beneath the pavement of the cemetery church of Saints Nabor and Felix. And what they find there shocks absolutely everyone.
Listen to his own words. This is a letter written by Saint Ambrose himself, and it gives us these gripping, first-hand archaeological details of the gruesome 2nd century execution we just talked about. He writes, "All the bones were perfect, and there was much blood." Ambrose's dig had unearthed the long-buried physical evidence of our twins. The gritty physical reality of their sacrifice was dragged right back into the light of day.
And this discovery, it absolute sets off an explosion of public fervor. As Ambrose is moving the relics to the new basilica, the strangest things start happening. The most famous incident involves a very well-known local blind man named Severus. He somehow manages to push through the crowd and touch the burial cloth of the twins, and miraculously, his sight is completely restored. This high-profile healing miracle is the exact moment the twins are catapulted from just a local memory into widespread, undeniable historical fame.
And here's the kicker. We don't just have to rely on local rumors here. Because guess who was standing in that crowd? St. Augustine, one of the most influential thinkers in all of Western history, was living in Milan at the time. And crucially, Augustine wasn't even baptized yet. He was this brilliant, highly skeptical observer. He acts as our ultimate historical anchor. He documented the undeniable events he witnessed with his own 2 eyes, writing extensively about the blind man Severus and the massive crowds in his masterpiece Confessions, his book City of God, and in his sermons.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 5. A global twin pilgrimage. We've seen how this 2nd century sacrifice was unearthed in the 4th century. Now, let's jump across continents and millennia. Just follow this timeline with me. It is a massive ripple effect. We go from the blood-soaked dirt of ancient Rome to the bustling streets of 4th century Milan, all the way to a deeply unique tradition among St. Thomas Christians in Asia in the 21st century. The veneration of these twin brothers spread way, way beyond Europe, eventually taking deep root in Kerala, India. The unbreakable sibling solidarity of 2 ancient martyrs now inspires thousands of people today. At the Saints Gervasis and Prothasis Foreign Church in Kothanalloor, Kerala, they hold an annual festival in June, and since 2007, this historic church has hosted a mass pilgrimage specifically for twins. Imagine this scene. Hundreds of pairs of twins, from tiny infants being carried by their parents to elderly siblings walking side by side, gathering together, often with twin priests celebrating the Mass. They gathered to honor the ultimate bond of brotherhood exemplified by Gervasis and Prothasis. It truly makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the long-lasting echoes of our own deepest convictions. We started with the father and mother, Vitalis and Valeria, who absolutely refused to back down. Their courage inspired their twin sons to give away a fortune and lay down their own lives. That sacrifice was literally unearthed centuries later, restoring a man's sight and captivating one of history's greatest minds. And today, 2,000 years later, it brings hundreds of twins together in celebration on the complete other side of the world. It just goes to show us that true conviction doesn't disappear into the earth, it echoes through eternity.